Today we are going to do something different here. We're out at the Honing Car Museum in a place called Bagsværd in Denmark. We're basically going to have a shootout between the DJI Avata and the just whatever Cinewhoop you have. Both of these have notable differences, as you can see. So we have the Tango 2 controller on one hand, we have the DJI FPV remote controller on the other hand. The next thing we have is we have the DJI FPV goggles V2 versus the new goggles 2. So how is this all gonna pan out? I actually don't know. One of the things that I wanna try today is we have the entire car museum at our disposal. There's a lot of light in here, so it's not going to be the most excruciating test for the Avata. On the other hand, it's all about the 8-bit and seeing if we can recover shadows and make everything good. The other part of the test, though, that I find equally interesting is which one is actually better, because I know this has a better image by far, but I do find this more comfortable. The last thing is how the actual quad flies. I mean, that's a big thing. Because when you're flying around cars like this, they're very expensive. You cannot afford to make a mistake. And I'm not sure if the Avata actually has what it takes to fly around these things, but let's see. Before I take off with this one, there's gonna be some noise and I sound pretty nasally, and that's because the goggles V2, while they are good looking, it's very hard on the nose. Take off. So the first thing that happens with this drone is that right now it's actually, let's move down here. Right now it's actually in GPS mode. So the first thing I have to do is I have to flip up and then flip down in manual mode, align the sticks, and now I have full control. All right, so let's see how this works. Now, the big difference between this and a Cinewhoop is that this thing weighs more, and also it's made by DJI, which means that I didn't tune it. The only thing I did with this so far is that I took the expo down from 0.50 to 0.12 or something. And that made a big difference. The other thing I did, which is very important, is that I calibrated the RC controller. Before I did that, it was almost impossible for me to keep like the right level when I was hovering. So right now we're actually just testing some of its finer capabilities, like how am I able to showcase this car. Right there, it does everything I wanted to do. There was nothing there that I didn't want to do. It was beautiful. So it flies really good. I've put it in horizon steady, and the reason I've put it in horizon steady, now I'm actually, you know that feeling? Right now I'm in doubt that I'm actually recording. That's why I'm hovering a bit. Let me check that real quick. Oh, good, we are recording. So now we have to put it back into manual mode. I'm not gonna do another video. Come on. See, that was a little dodgy, actually. That's a good point. So when you go into a brake mode and you hover, you then have to swap back to manual and you have to align the sticks. And while you do this, it actually does drift a little bit indoors. Anyway, so right now it's doing everything I wanted to do. It really does fly nicely. This flies as good. I won't say better, but it flies as good as my QAV 2.5, which I've used for a lot of things by now. I'm very surprised by this, actually. It feels controllable. It feels like it really wants to fly, but it doesn't steer you. I mean, I have control over it. It doesn't make me think that there's something that I don't want to do that it does, if that makes sense. I'm trying to talk while I'm flying, so excuse me if some of the stuff I'm saying is rambling a little bit. The reason I'm recording, as I said, in the horizon steady mode is because I often use that in real steady. Let's see how low we can go. Nice. So I want to test it out here. And the thing about horizon steady or the likes is that the more you turn left and right and bank, the more it has to zoom in on the picture. So if you go like this, the picture's actually going to get worse than if you... Whoa, hello, glasses. See, that was actually a bit surprising. I dropped more than I counted on. So if you want to bank, if you bank like this instead, like if you bank as if you were actually real steadying with horizon steady, then it almost doesn't crop the picture, which is a big difference for the quality gain of the image. So let's fly down here. I want to do 2 trips, one like this, just with horizon steady with the Avata, which we're flying right now, and then I want to do one with the GoPro 10 and the QAV, because I want the light, as you can see, there's a lot of light right now. I want that light to be approximately the same so we can do a fair test. It does really fly nicely. I mean, this is really nice. I do have a worry though, because if I was to hit something, it would go like other quads do, but then it would by itself turn off. And turning off by itself means that it could take too long, basically. It could go like sideways into a car or something like that. There is an option where you cross the sticks like down to the center or inwards to the center, and you can kill it. But the problem about doing that is I don't actually know if I do that movement by mistake. So I'm a bit nervous of trying that right now. All right, so I really do want to fly through a car right now, but the thing is that when I did this video last time, all the windows were rolled down on the cars and the route I'd selected. I don't know which ones are rolled down now, and they're very clean, so it's pretty hard to see. I will say though that for the V2 goggles, the quality is amazing. It's really good. Really, really, really good. I mean, this looks like almost a finished movie when I'm watching it. It looks so crisp. All right, so this definitely flies really nice. I also like the fact that what I'm seeing in my goggles is very close to the end result. Let's pick up the pace a little bit here. It's very close to the end result because basically I am seeing out of the camera I'm flying with, which is quite interesting. I can see, for instance, the shadows under this car might be a little bit too harsh. I don't know yet. But that's a preview I don't have with the GoPro. All right, let's head back and do a test with the GoPro and the QAV, and I'll talk over that and we'll see the differences. But so far, very impressed. Which feel very heavy right now. Let's take off with the QAV 2.5 with a GoPro 10 on top. It's a half GoPro 10, meaning that it doesn't weigh nothing, it weighs something. So I've tried to set the settings for the same as before, so ISO 400, 400, and so on and so forth. Same white balance, same everything. Now, right off the bat, this feels much more alive, but that's not to say it's a good thing. Let's try to do some of the same things we did before. I feel actually that this is much faster. Maybe I just have to get used to the weight of it. Because while it does weigh less, it's still, whoa. It does handle really nice. I mean, I gotta hand it to it. It's a really good quad, and it's just a pleasure to fly with, to be honest. But it's a different thing. I mean, the field of view, or, well, not the field of view, but what I see right now feels much bigger. It feels like the difference between playing on a 24-inch, which was the goggles 2, and playing on a 27 or 32-inch. This is the bigger one. That's not a bad thing, but it can sometimes, for those of you that are avid gamers, as you know, it can actually make a difference, because if something is too big in a sense, that sometimes means that you tend to get lost in what you're seeing instead of what you're doing. But I mean, this definitely flies nice. It feels a little more fast. I actually had an easier time on the Avata, not going forward. But I do feel that the general throttle control and movement of this is just a little bit, I wouldn't say nicer, because they're very, very close. And also, I think it's very important to know that, whoa, I'm very used to flying with this drone, so I kind of have an idea of what it can do and what it can't do, which is very, very important. For the Avata, I'm super worried, because it's a big drone. I mean, 400 grams into like that car in front of me would be bad. That would not be anybody's best day, you know? Wait, are there no windows in there? Wait, what? No, sorry. We came to do something. I'm sorry, I got distracted. I'm like a dog that way. So it really is something that I cannot leave at the back of my mind right now. Just the whole idea of what would happen if I was to crash, let's say, inside a car with the Avata. Not due to the weight only, but also due to how it's supposed to power off. Because this one, I really do, I mean, I know this drone. I know this drone very well. So I do have a really good idea of what it can do and what it can't do. Whee! And you can probably tell from the way I'm flying right now, I'm not flying as cinematic as with the other one. So let's try to get back into that. Sorry about that. It's one of those things that when you suddenly fly with something you know, treat it differently. So this feels like I'm used to. It feels very nice. I mean, but I'm actually not hating the Avata. I'm actually, whoa, see, this was a good, oh, that's actually a very good thing here. Okay, so now we have a big difference where the Avata might actually win. So if you look at this passage right here, this is not a very difficult passage to go down through, but I want to go in front of this car here and avoid the tree. Now I did this with the Avata. If you scroll, if you go back, and I had much more control over it. It's almost like the Avata was actually easier to keep on the plane as I turned, and it was actually like the Avata turned better. Oh my crapping god. Guess what happened, boys? I ran out of battery. So that was pretty interesting. Running out of battery can be many things. I mean, I'm not even sure if I forgot to actually test that battery before I flew, but with the Avata, I flew one time first at about 5 minutes, and I forgot to record sound because I'm an idiot. And then I flew another time, which was a little over 5 minutes as well, and I still had 2 dots left out of 4 on the battery, which is massive. It is possible that it's a combination of the battery I was using, you know, not being fully charged, but I also forgot about time because I just flown with the Avata before. So the flight right now felt surprisingly short for me, and that's pretty trippy when you're considering that I'm used to getting in this configuration, as you can see, with a GoPro 10 on top, peeled off the back, powered by the battery on the drone itself. With this configuration, I'm used to getting 3.5 minutes, and then I have to go back. Sometimes I even have to land where I am after 3.5 minutes. It depends very much on what I'm filming. So those 3.5 minutes or 2 minutes or however long I flew just went by like that. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but it's worth noting because the flight time on the Avata is really long. I mean, I could take off here, fly 1 full battery, and when I'm landing, I think I might have close to 14 minutes of flying. That might not seem like such a big difference, but consider the fact that not all videos you're making is going to be one takes. A lot of them are going to be a swoop here with the drone and a swoop there with the drone. And if you're flying for 14 minutes, you're going to have those swoops in that footage, which is a big thing. And that's just one flight. So I think, I don't think we have to fly with this one again regarding horizon steady and testing. What we're going to do now, I think, is I'm going to take another flight with this one. We're going to start with this one this time. And this time we're going to do unstabilized flight completely. Just this, and I can always stabilize later because it's GoPro, of course. But I'm just gonna basically not stabilize it and fly around and see how that does. And then I'm gonna fly with the Avata and actually choose no stabilization. This gives us a chance to put both through gyroflow and see how that works out. And also it gives you a chance to see some of the more unstabilized flight of the Avata and see what it can do. So let's go. On with the V2 goggles again, and let's go. This time we're just going to do a flight where I'm basically going to just fly as gentle as I can. So it's worth noting that the batteries I'm using is 4S 850 milliamps. It started at 16.3 volts. This battery has actually been lying around for a while, so it's already now at 15.3 volts. So it could do with a charge and a discharge. So I'm just gonna do some flight here and just try to keep my movements pretty smooth. And I'm sorry if you came here looking for, you know, an epic video of flying through cars. It's not gonna happen today because there's too many people here, and more importantly, I don't want to do it with the Avata before I get really used to it. So let's just go close to stuff because that's usually where the motors and everything freak out. If you're like in an area where air is being pushed up, let's fly close above these. See, it actually keeps itself very nicely. Well, this is a bad idea. I might not do that particular move with the Avata because there wasn't a lot of space there. So we're back on the avatar. Right now I've turned off stabilization, so it's not recording rock steady or anything like that. It's just pure this. Now I can see that it's gotten a bit darker since last time, but we're still gonna try this. I'm switching into manual mode. Give me control. See, as you can see, it's drifting while I'm doing this, which is very annoying, but that's how it is. See, that's interesting. It's not giving me manual mode, actually. I'm gonna have to position myself over here a little bit. And see, here we go. So now we have manual mode. All right, so let's grab it, and here we go. Let's do another flight with the DJI Avata. Remember, this is the same settings, so it could be that it's become too dark. I don't know. But I feel that it's a fair comparison in a way to still test it like this, because with the GoPro, even if it's too dark, you can actually do a lot of things with the shadows and everything. It's not always only about filming in the right light. It's actually often more about filming in the wrong light and just saving it afterwards. Now the Avatar right out of the gate feels a lot more... Oh shit, I pulled the stick, sorry, I moved my body, that wasn't the drone's fault. So the Avatar feels a lot more stable somehow. It feels, maybe it's the weight actually. It does feel more on a wire. It feels very, very straight. Look at that straight line, that's insane. That's actually very good. Now I always fly with my finger on the kill switch on the other drones I have, but on this one, I fly with it on the pause button, which I don't know if I'm ever going to use to fly over that guy again. I'm actually struggling a little bit. You see the lights up there that I'm passing? Those lights are very black. I almost can't see them, so maybe my settings are a bit too low right now, but they're the same as on the GoPro. So we're keeping them the same, but in the goggles right now, that's a little bit of a challenge. Now this black Mercedes looks very black in the goggles. It looks good, but it looks very black. So I'm very curious to see when I get back home how this is going to color grade and translate. I feel like I'm always pushing the right stick a little bit forward just to gain steering ability on this. This could be a PID thing, but the cool thing about that is when I let go of it, when I let go of that steering stick, it kind of stops and floats in that direction, which is very predictable. Let's say I want to look at this white Fiat up here. Go over here and I actually almost let go of the right stick. Now I'm only controlling with the left stick, do nothing on the right. And now I'm grabbing the right and I'm looking at it again as we go back. So on the QAV, I would have to be on the stick at all times. That's actually quite interesting. I wonder why that is. So let's take a look at how to color grade these things. Now, originally I did a video where I'm color grading it, but I'm gonna skip that part. This video is too long anyways. We're gonna have a look at the Avatar, and I know that that's not how you pronounce it, but I don't care, that's how I pronounce it. We're going to look at that material. Right now, all the filters and everything are off. This is the raw image, which is a very, very dark image. But I'm going to discuss this later in the video of why that is. But if we go in here, you can see I have some nodes, I have some glow, I have some sharpen, I have some halation, I have some cell shift blur, and I'm just messing around with this. You can see down here on the image, it's maxed out at the top, maxed out at the bottom, but the middle is relatively left alone, which is not too good. So enabling the color grade I've done for it provides a different image, as you can see. So let's take just a short look at the difference here. First, we do it without color grading. You can see how dark everything is, and this is the view I see in the goggles. Let's go over here and then go back. Enable color grading, and let's watch it one more time. So I felt a lot of limits color grading this. There's a limit to how much I can push it. I've definitely gone for more bluish image on this. I will say I'm very surprised about the image, considering the fact that this has been shot in ISO 400, and ISO 400 is, as you can see by the picture here, much lower than the GoPro. Let's do a case in point. That's the image from the Avatar, and this is the image from the GoPro at ISO 400, same settings. So, and these are raw, this is before the color grade, what I just showed you. There's another thing with the Avata that is a little bit weird to me. If you look at the Renault sign up here, if you take a good look at it, you can see that it's never really in focus. It's like right now would be the best focus, but that's not really focused, that's not sharp. So if you try to do a sharpness, if you, let's say we add a sharpness here, you can see that it becomes sharper, but it doesn't really fix it. I do think that the whole general thing about the Avata is the focus is a little bit weird. If we look at the text here, you can kind of make out what it says, but it doesn't feel like the focus is on it. Up here, it doesn't look like there's focus, but in the center, I mean, it's just a very, very soft focus compared to what you're looking at on the GoPro. And this is not a bad thing, because once we do the color grading, it actually makes for a very filmic look. But it is an image that is well, it's a lot harder to color grade because I don't have the option to do much more with this image than what it is right now. If I was to try and pull or push it in another direction or make it a little bit darker, make it a little bit lighter, the image is going to fall apart. So that's definitely the disadvantage of this image. At the same time, as you can see here, for instance, this is a very dark area. And again, this is the same settings. So if we want to try to brighten this up a little bit, we can go here and we can pull up the shadows. Now I can definitely pull up the shadows, as you can see, but the image becomes a little bit harsh. And once we then turn, everything is kind of too bright now. Even though it's not supposed to change the ISO or anything like that, it just becomes a very harsh image. I mean, look at this. This looks horrible. So let's go back. Now it actually looks acceptable. So I do think that this has some downsides to it. This is the area with the very black Mercedes. If we disable the color grading, you can see that this was my image. That is very, very dark. If we enable the color grading again, you can see that we've salvaged some of it. And I do think that overall, I'm surprised with the camera. I didn't expect it to be this good. This feels like a DJI Action 2 camera, but just with a little bit more control over the shadows. And you could argue that if I had filmed this whole thing in ISO 800, it probably would have been better to color grade. But the idea was to try and film it at the same settings as the GoPro rather than trying to figure out what's best for the Avata, because this really showcases that the Avata's camera is a completely different beast than the GoPro, and not only by a little, by a lot. I do think, however, that if I was to put it at ISO 800 on this day, it would have been too bright. And I don't think I would have been able to salvage that. So I think that for this particular shot, it would have to be something like ISO 400 and shutter 60, or it would have to be ISO 800 and then a higher shutter than that. You would have to do something, maybe even ISO 800 with a very low ND filter on it. But still, I have to say, right here is one of the most challenging things in the whole movie. And even this looks, I mean, this looks nice. This looks good. This looks filmic. And actually, it does look like it's a bigger camera than the GoPro. It looks more expensive in a way, if that makes sense. I think that this camera could easily blend in with bigger cameras, which is not something I was actually expecting, because everywhere I pause in this scene and look at it, it just looks good. I mean, it just really looks filmic. It's not the highest resolution 4K I've seen. It's not the sharpest or the most detailed, but considering all of the challenges with this, with the too low light and all these things, this is a really nice picture. It's a picture you want to look at. So let's move on to the GoPro. Let's disable all the color grading and go over here. This is without any color grading on. This is quite insane. That's a massive, massive difference. Oh, sorry, massive difference. So let's go over to this car. So on this one, we're gonna enable the color grading now. And as you can see, there's a big difference. Let's watch this car without color grading first and then with. And again, these color gradings are not something I've spent a ton of time on. It's not what I would deliver to a customer. It's just a pretty quick color grading that still challenges the footage. and makes it look in the direction of what I want. So this is without color grading. You can see that if I was to go ISO 800 with the GoPro, this would have been way too bright. So we enable the color grading, we go back and we watch the same clip again. Now we have much more control over everything. It doesn't look that bright and it looks much more filmic. You can also definitely, right off the get-go, see that the GoPro is way more sharp. And the whole sharpness thing and which image is best it's subjective as hell. This image right now, in my mind, is the better image. The GoPro provides the better image and it provides the better camera for color grading. But at the same time, I do really think that the Avata has just a very nice, very gradable camera that lends itself to just looking bigger than it actually is. But having said that, this is just, you know, it's very close to being as perfect as you can in the size that it is. I think that with the GoPro, the advantage is that if you go over here and you go, this Porsche is a bit too sharp, let's remove some mid detail, which I've already done. Or let's try to actually add some more contrast. I want a more contrasted image. Let's actually try to, let's do something here. Let's try to just boost a few different tones here and alter the overall feel of the image here. So like something like this, I would just not be able to do on the Avata. I really wouldn't, because it would just break the image. So right now I've changed this even more. I mean, this is too wild, obviously, but the image hasn't broken yet. And you can't do that on the Avata. And this is, it just is a better grading tool, to be honest. So I guess that's the result for the color grading. Let's go to a wrap up. We're back from the museum. It was actually a shot I did yesterday, and I want to touch up on the three main items in this: the drones, the remote controller, and the goggles. Let's begin with the goggles, actually. So here we have the DJI goggles V2. Not going to go into full specs on these because you can check that out everywhere else. As a feeling in general, this was very interesting. They do pinch very hard. If you watch the footage again, you can see that my forehead, which is already very sensitive, is like flaking completely because it's pressing so hard against it. And my nose was pushed so hard that I sounded nasal. Very, very uncomfortable. Bad job, DJI. And I know a lot of people are gonna say, well, you're gonna have the secondary foam. Once it comes out, there's gonna be like a nicer foam for it, which is probably true, but I'm also using these with the standard foam, and they are super comfortable. There's also something about the view. So the goggles V2 have a sort of more condensed view. You feel like you're watching it like this, where on the DJI goggles V2 you feel like you're watching this. I will say though that the quality is amazing. There is a slight problem because what you see is what you're gonna get. And I noticed something after I came home, which is something we're gonna be discussing in the color grading section. So this is an OLED panel, and an OLED panel means that it can basically reproduce colors very accurately, and the blacks become completely black because it turns off the actual pixel for it. But it also means that it can become a very bright display. The first thing I did with these, which is my bad, is that I turned them up to 100% because I wanted to experience the vividness of the picture. Having this at 100%, I can see now that I've reviewed the footage, what looks okay to me, but maybe a little bit dark, is way too dark in post. So when I'm editing it, if I turned down these glasses to say 50% or 30% or something like that, I would have actually been able to tell that in the glasses, and I would have been able to up the ISO and go like, okay, ISO 400 is not enough for this camera. But as it is right now, the material is actually a little bit too dark. If I was to shoot this for a client, I would have gone back, shot it at 800 ISO, and the result would have been nicer. But I think that's worth noting. Don't turn these up to full strength if you're planning to have an accurate representation of what you're seeing in terms of doing video work and color grading with it later. Very important. The rest of these, it's nice, it's very nice. I mean, the whole diopter system works. I do have the visual astigmatism or whatever it's called, which means that, you know, I can't just pick up like any sort of glasses. I need special things, and this can actually fix that. Very impressed by that. It's a little bit hard to see the outer areas, but nowhere near as hard as what people are saying. As for the old V2 goggles, the trusty ones, I like this. I don't like the fiddly touch thingy on the side of these, because when it gets cold, it's gonna screw up probably. I like the haptic feedback of having buttons. I like my buttons, you know? I just like this better. I honestly like it better. The quality is better in the others, but it's not that much. That's my verdict on these. Now, for the Tango 2 versus the DJI Remote Controller 2, this was quite surprising. I like the Tango 2. I've been using it for a lot of gigs. I really do enjoy this controller, and it is quite cool. It's quite perfect. It just works, but it does have a lot of stuff on it that is a little bit subpar. So first of all, this whole folding mechanism, these are the Pro controllers, so you can fold the sticks. More than once during a flight, I've been flying, actually I fly like this, and the stick has actually folded on me. That's really bad. I cannot stress to you how bad that is. For that reason, I also have a pair that is non-pro, and if it's something where I just cannot make that mistake, I use those. So that's one thing. The other thing is calibrating these is quite hard. When you calibrate these, it will often say 0 is not 0. It's like fluctuating a little bit. And it does that on both the Pro and the non-Pro version, and has done so since I got them. The DJI Remote Controller 2, on the other hand, is absolutely fantastic. It's very high quality. The only downside to this, I think, is the sticks. The sticks are very, very short, but you could fix that. The battery life on it is very good. It's no problem calibrating it. It feels responsive, feels good. And I must admit, I like all these gadgetry things. I like the fact that I can fly up in the air with the Avata and click this and just look straight down, because sometimes that's a good option. I like the pause button, because when you're out doing something, if you can pause it and just take your goggles off and bash that mosquito or talk to the DP or whatever, that's very good as well. So I actually think this wins over the Tango, which to me is very surprising, because I do like the Tango and I've been using it a lot. So the final thing, the QAV Pro versus the Avata. Which one to begin with? Let's begin with the QAV. So as you can see, this QAV has led a harsh life. This has seen things that people shouldn't see, basically. The way this is configured right now is pretty unique, I think. I don't think anybody else is doing this. The camera is stuck with double-sided tape. The reason I'm doing this is, there's a lot of reasons for it. First of all, if you crash, it doesn't break something, it doesn't come off, it actually just bends the camera slightly and you can tilt it back. Secondly, this kind of tape is very cheap and it's pretty thick, so you do get a lot of insulation. Something I notice a lot when you're flying fast with this particular setup, you do get some blurriness in the picture, because I didn't make this setup to fly fast, I made it to fly slow. Because the other thing is also true, if you do fly slow with this, you get some vibrations, and this combats that vibration of going slow. So this drone in itself is pretty easy, pretty standard. A lot of you guys know it. I like it a lot. I like the fact that it's light. I've covered it with foam on all the important parts and bits. So the screws sticking up here are covered with foam and so on. So if you hit something, you don't hit it with carbon, you hit it with foam, or the battery, which also can have a layer of foam, or the camera, which can have a layer of foam or is naked. I enjoy the flight with this. It's a bit fiddly to tune, because it's a very temperamental drone in a sense. It flies well, but it's like a sports car. So if the weather changes, the engine changes, sort of. That's the best way I can describe it. But it's a solid drone. Nothing bad about it. The Avata, on the other hand, is very rugged in its build. It's very, very solid. The Avata, on the other hand, is very solid. It's very solid. So it's just a nicely designed drone, to be honest. The antennas are in here and everything is super low. The battery is massive, everything clicks together, and it feels good. The actual flight of this surprised me a great deal. It makes less noise than my QAV, which I guess in some ways is not too surprising, since the QAV is like more temperamental. It goes at a higher pitch that is more annoying. I actually like the sound of this more. I like everything about this drone. I like how it flies, I like how it makes me feel, I like the utilities of the pause and the GPS and all these things. The things I didn't like about it is, I don't like the weight of it, because when you hold it in your hand, you can feel that it's a small drone, but it does pack like a brick punch. It feels like this would hurt to get in your face. The QAV actually doesn't feel that way. I don't like the fact that when you pause indoors, and I guess this is a normal thing, that it begins drifting that much. But I mean, that's a small thing. What I really don't like is the fact that you have to swap between manual and sport and normal. And once you hit manual, you have to align the sticks. Who came up with that? I mean, at least give us a control where we can just flip it into manual and goes, boop, and then you're in manual. And then let it be our situational awareness and our skills that decides if we're having the sticks in the wrong way the second we do that. Because that could open up for some very interesting flights where you're going from a stationary or you're going from a normal DJI style flight and then you pop into acro and do something else. Right now, as it is, it feels kind of dangerous indoors to align the sticks. It could also feel kind of dangerous outside because it would actually take a long time to get the sticks positioned. It just feels like it's an oversight, to be honest. I do get that this is a beginner drone in the sense that it can teach a lot of beginners to fly, but that feels like a wasted moment. As for the rest of the drone, there's not much else to say than it's just, I wish that my QAV had the functions of this, and I do wish that the QAV actually flew like this out of the box. I do think the added weight has something to do with it. I also really like that it's flat up here on top. This means that it's very easy to stick a GoPro on. It's very easy to actually stick a GoPro on and something else on. This thing can carry 900 grams before it buckles. Not saying that you should do that, but it's pretty interesting because that means you could put a naked cam here, you could put an Insta360 on here and point backwards or whatever you want. So very surprised, and in this duel, I kind of feel the QAV has to win because it's a more serious tool that you can do anything with. It doesn't have flaws per se, but I still like this more. I really do. I want all drones in the future to be like this and just get smaller, but keep the same clickety-click functions and keep the same safety functions and have the same battery life and so on and so forth. So future-wise, I do think that this is the winner. I think the QAV is obsolete. I think every other drone is kind of obsolete. This is the way to go. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it is the way the future's headed. I'm not saying anything bad about do-it-yourself. As you can see, I built a lot of stuff. I've made my business on building stuff. I really enjoy doing it, and there's a special connection between man and machine once you build stuff yourself. But this is going to take over. It's only a question of when it's going to do so, and if that's the case, I think this is a pretty damn good start, because this is version 1. Imagine version 5 of this. And that's it, we're done. Leave a comment below if you have any questions, and I hope you enjoyed it. Take care, bye.